A hospital corridor, a closed door, a woman 7 months pregnant standing frozen as she watches her husband cradle another woman's newborn child. It should have destroyed her. But what nobody in that room knew was that she wasn't just a betrayed wife. She was the silent owner of an empire
Let's
worth millions,
review
and
the
she was about
key
to remind everyone
points.
exactly who held the power. This is a story of deception, hidden truth, and the kind of justice that doesn't ask permission. It takes what's owed. And trust me, you won't believe how quickly everything changes once the truth comes out. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Sophie Bennett pushed through the automatic doors of Memorial General Hospital just past midnight, the December cold still clinging to her coat as she stepped into the harsh, fluorescent lobby. Her breath came in shallow bursts, her hand instinctively moving to her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, and every step felt like a reminder to slow down, but her mind refused to listen. Ryan had told her he was handling an emergency client meeting, something that couldn't wait until morning. She'd believed him the way she always did, trusting his calm explanations even when something deep inside her whispered warnings she chose to ignore. Tonight, that whisper became a scream, and it led her here. She'd called him 4 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. That wasn't like Ryan. Even on his busiest nights, he always answered her calls, always. Sophie moved toward the elevators, her steps careful but determined. A nurse hurried past, sneakers squeaking against the polished floor, glancing at Sophie's belly with a sympathetic smile before disappearing down the hall. Sophie couldn't return the smile. Her chest felt too tight, her thoughts too tangled. The elevator dinged softly, and she stepped inside, pressing the button for the 4th floor. Her pulse quickened as the doors slid shut. The ride felt endless, each second stretching as the elevator hummed upward, carrying her toward whatever truth waited above. She rubbed her belly gently, feeling the reassuring movement beneath her palm. Her baby was strong, steady, a small anchor in a sea of rising dread. She whispered a quiet promise, the same one she'd made 100 times before. Everything will be okay. I'll keep you safe. The doors opened to a brightly lit hallway that smelled faintly of antiseptic and warm cotton. A large sign hung ahead, labor and delivery. Sophie paused, unable to explain why her legs hesitated even as her heart urged her forward. She entered the waiting area, a space filled with muted voices and soft lighting meant to comfort anxious families. Her eyes swept the room out of habit, and then she froze. Draped over a plastic chair near the door to Delivery Room 6 was a navy jacket she knew as well as her own reflection. The worn cuff, the familiar stitching, Ryan's jacket, her breath caught. Next to it lay his thermos, the one she'd given him last Christmas, its silver surface reflecting the overhead lights. A phone charger rested beside it, plugged into the wall. Her heart stumbled as her gaze drifted to the closed door behind the chair. Delivery Room 6. She swallowed hard, forcing her legs to move. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before her. A nurse pushed through the door, her scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. She glanced at her clipboard, then called out in a clear, steady voice, "The father can come back now. The baby's here." The words hit Sophie like ice water. She felt the world tilt, reality colliding with suspicion in a way that made her stomach twist. She reached for the back of a nearby chair, steadying herself as her pulse thundered in her ears. Sophie's hand trembled as she stepped toward the small window built into the door. Each step felt like a battle between fear and disbelief. She told herself she was wrong, that there had to be another explanation, but deep down she already knew. She reached the window and looked inside. What she saw stole the breath from her lungs. Ryan stood at the bedside, his hand intertwined with another woman's, his body leaning forward as though trying to hold her together through the aftermath of labor. The woman, younger, blonde, exhausted, clung to him desperately. Sophie recognized her. Natalie Grant, Ryan's assistant, someone he'd mentioned casually, someone Sophie had never thought twice about because she trusted her husband. Ryan bent close, speaking softly into Natalie's ear. Natalie nodded, gripping his hand the way Sophie once gripped his during their birthing classes. The sight hollowed Sophie from the inside out, leaving only a cold, ringing silence where her heartbeat should have been. Sophie stepped back from the window, her breath trembling. The fluorescent lights above buzzed with relentless brightness, making everything feel too sharp, too exposed, too real. The door opened. Ryan stepped out, wiping his hands on a paper towel. When he turned and saw her standing there, his entire body went rigid. Shock flashed across his face, followed by panic and irritation. For a moment, neither spoke. "What are you doing here?" Ryan hissed, glancing around as though afraid someone might hear. "Sophie, this isn't the time. You shouldn't be here." Sophie opened her mouth, but no words formed. Ryan sighed sharply. "You can't make a scene, do you understand? This is already complicated. Go home, I'll explain later." "Explain what?" Sophie managed to whisper. Before Ryan could respond, Natalie's voice drifted out from behind the door. "Ryan, they need you. Please come back." Sophie felt her heart twist. Ryan looked over his shoulder, then back at Sophie. "I have to go. She needs me right now." "Please don't stand here. People are looking." Sophie glanced around. A couple in the waiting area tried not to stare. A nurse by the desk watched with thinly veiled curiosity. Ryan leaned closer. "Go home before this gets worse. Don't embarrass yourself." The words struck harder than any shout could have. "Go home, Sophie," Ryan said once more. "I'll call you when this is over." He turned and slipped back inside without waiting for her answer. The door clicked shut, leaving her alone with nothing but the sound of distant monitors and fluorescent lights. Sophie moved down the hallway as if her body no longer belonged to her. The bright lights seemed too harsh. The floor felt unsteady. She gripped the railing, trying to steady her breathing, but the tightness in her chest only grew. When she reached the elevators, her vision flickered. She blinked, willing herself to stay upright, but her knees buckled. She reached out, her fingers scraping the wall as she fell. Within seconds, hands surrounded her. Voices layered over each other. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Are you having contractions?" Her world blurred as she was lifted onto a gurney. Ceiling lights streamed past like bright stars as they rushed her toward the emergency wing. Hours later, Sophie sat in her mother's penthouse overlooking the city. Margaret Bennett handed her a glass of water, her silver hair swept into an elegant bun, her tailored suit radiating quiet authority. "You came here because something happened," Margaret said gently. "You don't have to tell me everything at once." Sophie swallowed carefully. "I couldn't go home, I just needed somewhere steady." Margaret studied her daughter. Then she rose and retrieved a thick folder from a drawer. She placed it on the coffee table with deliberate care. "Sophie," she said softly, "there's something you need to remember, something you let yourself forget because you wanted a simpler life." Sophie looked at the folder, confusion shifting to caution. "What is this?" Margaret opened it to reveal documents neatly arranged in protective sleeves, stock certificates, voting rights agreements, transfer authorizations signed years before her marriage. "You own 85% of Bennett Enterprises," Margaret said, her tone unwavering. "You always have. Ever since your father passed, the company became yours. I manage it because you asked for time. You wanted freedom to build a life outside the boardroom." Sophie stared at the documents, her heart thudding with slow, heavy rhythm. "You're not powerless," Margaret continued. "Far from it. You have more authority than anyone in this city realizes, including your husband." Sophie breathed in slowly. The truth settled into place like a stone dropping into water, sending ripples through the quiet room. For the first time since leaving the hospital, her breath steadied. She understood exactly who she truly was. The annual Bennett Enterprises gala filled the grand ballroom with conversation and clinking glasses. Ryan entered with confident strides, believing the narrative was his to control. The divorce papers were ready. Natalie was waiting at home. Everything felt aligned. Then the murmuring shifted. Sophie entered, dressed in a tailored black gown. Her steps were steady, unhurried. The calm strength in her posture drew every eye. Ryan froze. Sophie walked to the stage and accepted a microphone. The entire room held its breath. "Thank you for being here," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "There's something important I need to clarify." She turned toward the audience. "For several years, I've chosen to live quietly. Many of you may not know the full structure of our company's ownership. Today, I want to correct that." She paused. "I am the majority owner of Bennett Enterprises. I hold 85% of the voting shares." A collective gasp spread through the hall. "With that ownership comes responsibility," Sophie continued. "I've reviewed recent financial activities conducted under the authority of our chief financial officer." She turned slightly toward Ryan. "Those activities include unauthorized withdrawals, misuse of company funds, and falsified reports." The screens behind them flickered to life. Receipts, emails, financial logs. "Effective immediately," Sophie said. "Ryan Bennett is removed from all duties pending full internal investigation." Two security guards stepped forward. Ryan's eyes widened. "Sophie, you can't do this. You can't humiliate me like this." But Sophie didn't speak. She stepped aside as the guards approached. The room erupted in camera flashes as Ryan was escorted down the aisle. Natalie appeared near the entrance, her face pale, watching in silent disbelief. Sophie stood alone on the stage, the weight of the moment settling around her as the hall held its breath. 3 weeks later, the courtroom filled with tension. Ryan sat at the defense table, his jaw clenched. When the judge spoke, his voice was steady and firm. "Mr. Bennett, you are hereby sentenced to 8 years in state prison for corporate fraud and embezzlement." Gasps erupted. Ryan's head jerked up in disbelief. As officers led him away, he called out desperately, "Sophie, say something." But Sophie remained still, her hands clasped together with quiet strength. When she finally exited the courthouse, the sun broke through the clouds, casting warm light across the steps. She descended slowly, feeling her breath settle into an even rhythm. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. If this story moved you, if you've ever felt powerless but found your strength again, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And remember, you are never as powerless as someone wants you to believe. Drop a comment below telling us your story. We're listening. We see you. And we're here with you. Thank you for watching.